Hello everyone. In this video, I will reveal secrets and tips how to make progress and gain rating points playing online. So hopefully a lot of the viewers are playing chess online, more so than over the board long games. And without further ado, a little bit about me. I have a CM FIDE title, Canadian Master, and unlike maybe some of the videos you can find on the internet, I have blitz rating above 2500 and blitz rating on lead chess also above 2500. So the recipes I will show you here are based on my own games, and if you're looking to beat players 2100, 2200, even 2400 rated players quickly online, this is the place to be. Now, what I'm gonna go over is various openings and ideas which are successful even against strong players with white, mostly e4 but also d4. Now, before I go deep into the theory, after e4 you will face e5 or you will face c5. Why is that? Because Top Grandmaster, like in Madrid, the candidates, these are the two main moves that you will encounter. Now, of course, other club players may try, let's say, d6 or d5, or c6 the Caro-Kann, and e6 the French defense. That's possible, but by and4, you need to be ready for e5 and for c5 with white. Now, in this video, sometimes when you get a bit tired or you want another idea, I will show how you can play d4 without knowing a lot of lines, and show one game where I use d4 with a special weapon to win with white. Now let's start with c4 and let's go with c5. Now there are a lot of different Sicilians, so one of the most dangerous Sicilians that the black player can play at that level will be what we call the Sicilian Dragon with g6, and this is a sharp opening. So my vision of this opening is here not to play the main line bishop c4, which will be the absolute theory there, but go with castle here. Of course, because I don't play bishop c4, most players will play d5, which is the best move according to the opening theory. And now the main lines we go by taking on d5. It gets very complicated. I like the move queen e1. Why is that? Well, there's a little trap, right? Black takes here, you take here and you win on the spot. Of course, a strong player, 2000 or more, may not fall into that, and we play e6, which is natural. And in my game online, that's what my opponent played. So now I took and play h4. So the same idea as when you play bishop c4 and bishop b3, but instead of doing these two moves which take some time, you go directly with h4, h5, g4, maybe queen d2, bishop h6, and or h take, and you're trying to attack, but keeping your bishop here on f1. So in the game, rook b8, of course, the queen can come here, and you may also get queen a5, queen b4. Of course, black has some ideas. So I pushed. Now queen a5, and I went h5. Now, of course, I will be able to defend, if need be, on queen b4. On queen b4, I would have played b3, and then there's no more attack there. So here, my opponent went bishop a6. I took, exchange, and now queen h4. Very simple. We're on move 18. Checkmate is threatened. Rook fe8, rook d2 to defend, knight b6. So clearly my opponent is trying to come here or maybe come there and attack here. But here I have a winning move already on move 20th, and I played bishop c5. What's the idea? I'm blocking f8 and I'm threatening queen h7, checkmate. My opponent tried to make a luft for the king. I took, he tried that move, And after queen h7, he resign. After king f8, queen g7 is checkmate. So once again, on the dragon, my recommendation, the little move, queen e1 here. And that is a very strong setup for white.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Thank you for that. Here, and now I win. Yep. There we go. We got the win. A win is a win. We move to 9 out of 10.
Now, in the second Sicilian play on chess.com server against a strong opponent, I was facing this Sicilian with 96. So of course, that's one of the move order that you can get. And then you will get this opening like that. You have to prepare. And here you have to prepare knight d5 or maybe play bishop g5 and so on. But instead of going into all of this theory here, I like to play bishop b5. That's called the Rossolimo. So here my opponent decided to play the logical move, and here I'm willing to give a pawn. So this is a top tip, right? If you want to create some dynamic play, want to take the edge against a strong player, you have to be willing to risk. And here I'm giving up a pawn on move 6, but I'm trying to generate some play. And that is a true technique in a blitz game. You're giving up some material by putting some pressure. More often than not, your opponent may not be able to resist your attack. And here we go, stacking the pawn. So I am down a pawn. Do I have a checkmate here? No. So what did I play? Bishop h6. Why is that? Very simple. I'm preventing castle here. Now I see this bishop on e5. I'm gonna play either queen e2, rook e1, and attacking the bishop, right? So even though black is a pawn up, it has to solve some issues here, right? It's not a free pawn. And I'm hoping that I'm gonna get the better of my opponent after this imbalance. So here, only move f5. That's a great move. My opponent, of course, is very strong. He's not gonna give up right away. Attacking the bishop, playing knight a3 once again, knight c4, knight b5. I have some ideas. Knight f7. That's a great idea by black. Attacking the bishop. I move the bishop, and my opponent castles. On move 13, I'm still down a pawn, right? 8 pawns for black and 7 pawns for white. Should I, worry about? Should I stress about that? Absolutely not, right? I knew I would give up a pawn, but look, all my pieces are developed. My rooks are connected, right? Look about black's position. This is not in play, hasn't moved yet, and my opponent just castle. Clearly, if you compare the yellow pieces and the green pieces that I have highlighted on the board, clearly I have an advantage here. So how can I convert? Let me show you. Rook fe1. Very interesting, right? Trying to put some pressure here. And the second thing I want to point out is what I had in mind is knight c4, knight e5 as well. So my opponent played e5, take, knight c4, controlling the key square e5, trying to put a piece in there. My opponent played e5 himself, take, and here I am winning. Well, why is that? Black intended to play bishop e5, and here I have little check, intermezzo, and now queen e5, and this is completely winning because of the back rank. So I would go exchanging to rook e8 and have a winning position. So instead, my opponent play bishop d7. I play, of course, bishop c4 check, rook a d1. All my pieces are playing, and black is too late to develop. After queen c8 to avoid the pin, I am simply winning here. Take, queen e7, attacking the rook. You can see for a pawn, which I captured back, I have a overwhelming advantage. Queen f8 defends the rook, I get a piece, and here I get checkmate on move 25. So once again, what was the key idea in this opening? The Rossolimo, I gave up a pawn, but was able to develop my pieces well before my opponent. And here I have a big advantage in development. And then when the play opened up here, I had a winning position on move 17. So that's one of the recipes I recommend, giving your opponent play for the initiative and put some maximum pressure on your opponent. And that was a fairly easy game, and let's go to the next example.
Go here, here, and now I win. Yep. There we go, we got the win. There we go, got the win. Let's keep going.
My third example, still playing with the white pieces, my opponent here played e6. That's also called Sicilian Taimanov or Sicilian Can, very popular, and this is my recipe against the Sicilian. On here, I just simply play bishop e3, bishop e2, I'm gonna castle, and maybe play a4, and here, little surprise, my opponent played bishop b4, putting some pressure on e4. Just as in last game, I'm giving up a pawn. Alright, I give up the e4 pawn. Queen d3, d5, c4. I definitely want to win the pawn back, and that would be dangerous. And if black try to take here, I would win the piece. So c4, very strong here. What did my opponent do? Of course, knight f6, not to lose a piece. Take, bishop g5. Once again, the black king has not castled. My pieces here are ready to come into the action. My rooks are connected. Black's is still not done and hasn't even moved the bishop on c8, neither the rook here. So for just one pawn, I'm putting some pressure on my opponent. Knight b4, attacking the queen and potentially winning a second pawn. Am I worried about that? Absolutely not. Check. And now knight d4. So not only do I defend here, but I'm attacking here as well, and I have bishop f6 on top. Queen b6 played by my opponent. And here I could have won very easily with rook a b1, followed by a3, winning the knight. But I played c3, my opponent played back the knight, knight e6. And here a blunder by black, and I win the queen, move 19, game over. Now you may say, well, on 96, of course that was the right move. But then I have check. Let's say I take with a pawn, and after king takes, I'm winning a piece, and then I'm winning the rook. So even though there was a blunder, knight e6 is winning. So once again, what was the strategy here? Give up the e4 pawn, right? Don't try to defend here e4 or play e5. Simply play castle, give up the pawn, and develop your pieces ahead of your opponent, and good things will come through.
Here, and now I win. Yep. There we go, we got the win. A win is a win. We move to 9 out of 10.
Now carrying on this series, I want once again to recap, right? On e4, you should be ready against c5, the Sicilian defense, but also e5. Then at the end of the video, I will cover other ideas, but that's the two main moves you should be ready for. And I have a few great games that I play and won against strongly rated opponents. So let's go right into it. Okay, here we go. e4, e5. So I have on my channel already a few videos about this opening, but let's see how in practice I make a win happen quickly here. So I played the Italian, and here let's pause. My opponent has castle, has developed the pieces, but I did not finish my development here. I am here, but that's what's gonna surprise my opponent. My king is still in the center. And here I'm playing what the computer recommends, what I have studied, g4. I'll put a link here in the video, also in the description. I explain the key idea behind these moves in a specific opening video. In this case, I want to open g4, g5, to play rook g1 and attack the king. My opponent defends in the center. That's a good idea. Knight e4, and here g5. And here already I have a very strong attack, trying to open up the line and go for the king. Now my king in the center, but I've studied this opening. It's not so easy for black to get to the white's king. Bishop e6 played, and now my opponent played g6, trying to close down this line. But I have a great move. Knight f g5. Can see the queen's gonna make its way to the king side, and I'm also attacking here, also threatening h7. Even though my king in the center, once again, I have a strong attack. Queen e7, queen f3. Now black here had to do king h8, trying to survive. But black said, let me attack you, and that's what happened. I take here, he's taking here, queen e4, my opponent takes on f2. Okay, he's getting to my king, king d1. Look at this, the king will hide on c2, no problem. Meanwhile, that piece is attacked, that king is weak, that pawn is attacked, I have f7 coming, maybe bishop g5 coming. It is game over already. Knight f6 played, queen g6, and my opponent resigned. Because here the only move is king h8, but I have check. And here I'm winning a piece. So once again, very surprising. You prepare g4, that's your key idea. And I have a whole video just designed to explain when you can play g4 in the Italian, and it is a very strong variation. I call the Italian lion variation. On to the next game.
Still goes on. He blunders now, f7. There we go. Oh my god, that was crazy, crazy finish. Yeah, thank you so much to Charlie Dre for the 13 months. Yeah, thank you so much to Product.
In here, again, playing a very highly rated opponent. And in this position, my opponent still goes for a different plan in the Italian game, but now he's a bit more cautious. He did not castle and commit the king to the king side. He's developing the pieces. So here doing h3, g4, if my opponent had not castled, first of all, he could do h6 and g5, maybe d6, queen e7. He doesn't have to castle. So g4 is not the idea here. Why not? Once again, because the king is still on e8. He hasn't committed to e8, to g8 and h6. So I cannot launch g4, g5 because it's not ready for that. So what do you do then? That's where my experience comes in, and against that player, I play knight f1. I don't want to castle either, and I want the knight to come to g3 and f5, and just wait and see what my opponent will do. So he's striking in the center. Just like my previous opponent, Italian players, they love to play d5, answering in the center. So I took, play knight g3, now he castles, and knight castles. And now you can see that the knight here could come to h5, prevents black to play bishop f5. If black goes bishop g4, I have h3, I can play rook e1, maybe knight g5, knight e4, I do have a lot of ideas here. And here my opponent goes wrong. Knight f4. He's trying to attack d3, maybe play b5, maybe play bishop g4, but he missed a key move. I'm playing d4. Obviously, you cannot take because that's a free piece. So seeing that, I'm also threatening d takes e5 and winning a piece. So my opponent retreats. I play knight g5. My opponent took on d4, getting an extra pawn, and now move 13, queen h5. Very simple idea, checkmate in one move. My opponent played h6 and then resign without waiting for my next move. Well, I would have taken the knight because of the pin here, and if he takes on g5, I have knight h5, and I'm threatening checkmate on g7, and the only way to defend would be queen f6, but I had that check and checkmate. So here in only 13 moves after h6, I won against a strong opponent. So this is how you can really fight for a win without knowing a lot of theory, using my recipes with bishop c4.
Now, again, I don't know if this was best because my pawns are kind of split here, but now I create the fossil, and we get a very nice, easy win here in round 2. 2 up, 2 down. Very, very good stuff. Let's watch some other games. Let's see what else we have. We have Dimitri.
In this video, in this example, I will show how to win against the Russian defense or the Petrov defense. Now this game was played on lead chess, and once again it's on a fairly strong opponent, and here what I did is play knight c3. So my opponent played knight c6. We have the 4 knights variation. So I'm not going into the theory, which would be like that, and knight takes e4, d4, d5. And here, this is what they play in Madrid, in the candidates. I'm trying to avoid theory, but still play for a win. And here, I'm throwing a4. Now, who played a4 in blitz game or rapid games? Magnus Carlsen. He has played that move. So here, bishop b4. Well, of course, I have a hole in b4. So my opponent said, why not? And here, I play bishop g3. That's a very strange move. Why would I move my bishop here and my d-pawn here cannot move forward, right? What's gonna happen to my bishop c1? So let's see. Now my opponent I play bishop b4, right? I have defended e4, so he cannot win a pawn. And I'm playing knight d5, attacking the bishop. Now if the bishop come here, it may be trapped, right? With c3, b4. So my opponent said, well, I'm going to do the same as you. I'm going to do bishop d6 like you did bishop d3. He's trying to take a page from my play. I play c3, play knight e7, I take bishop c2. Now we can see that the bishop here is perfectly placed. I have d4 coming on top, and that bishop here is in the way. Now the king here is weakened by the pawns. So we're on move 10, and with my little sideline, knight c3, I have a very promising position. Let me demonstrate. I play d4, knight f4. Notice, right? Players like to play knight f4. That was also in my Italian game before. g3, knight g5, h4. And now let's see. All my pieces once again are developed. This is weak. The queen is here. These pieces don't play. I have a strong advantage. That's a wrong move anyway. Queen h5 attacking h6. And after rook h8 trying to hide the king, I finish with checkmate on move 17. So once again, bishop g3, a very interesting sideline, and my opponent didn't know much about the theory here, I can guarantee that, and I managed to get a strong position out of the opening. So here's my tip against knight f3, knight f6 for white. Now let's switch gears and let's see a different opening in the next video. Now, what I want to present is a quick way to play 1d4. So I tend to play 1e4 a bit more often, but sometimes it's important, especially if your opponent knows you, or if you're trying to try something else, or you're not sure about one of the lines, let's say against the Caro-Kann, and you want to explore d4, it's good to have another set of openings ready. And here I'm gonna share how I do that with 1d4. So obviously I'm still ambitious, trying to win against strong players, 2300, 2400, 2500, but I don't want to learn a lot of theory by books, go online and check the latest King's Indian Defense, or the latest Grunfeld, or the latest Queen's Gambit theory. I don't have the time for that. Now, obviously, d4 had to play with a win. I'm showing that here. And here on the right side, you have the Rossolimo we've seen. On the left side of the screen, I want you to take a quick look at the position. I only put the white pieces, the knight on e5 and bishop on d3. But look at the pawns. I have pawns on d4 and f4 and e3. But the key is, like with the pawn of f4, I'm going to start an attack. The knight e5 and the bishop on d3, they are ready to attack the king's side. So you may say, well, you only have like 5 pieces on the board. But that's all I used for my knowledge to win the next game against a strong opponent on chess.com, and that was a rated game. So this is my recipe that I'm happy to share here on my channel, how to win with black fairly quickly. With white, sorry, using 1d4. So here I start here, and clearly I do not want to go in the main line, certainly not have the time for the Catalan opening, which is played at the highest level by Carlsen and Nepomniachtchi. I don't have the time for that, so I go with bishop g5, the Torre Attack. Now d5 is played, and we're playing developing moves. So now I have developed my pieces. Move 8, knight e5. Now you can see I have my knight on e5, my bishop on g3. I have my pawns here. I'm missing my next idea, the pawn on f4. c5. First, I have to defend d4. Okay, I castle. Rook b8. So my opponent is signaling to me he wants to play b5, b4, bishop b7. All right, what is my plan? f4. Now you can see that bishop is targeting the king side. My knight here is superb. My queen can come here, or maybe my rook can come here. I don't know yet, but I have a lot of ideas. It's very simple to play. My opponent played knight e5. That's not a good move. Now we exchange a few pieces. Queen h5. Now you can see I have pressure on the f-file. That bishop is looking at the king side. And that pawn here on e5 prevents black to play knight f6. So that pawn here is key. Yes, I lost my knight on e5. But one of the reasons why I can attack here with white is because I have a pawn on e5. And that's really hampering black's defense. b5, rook f3, rook lift, rook f3, rook g3, rook a f1. These are not difficult moves to find, and that's what happened. My opponent wants to exchange queens. Not today. Now I'm attacking the queen, moving the knight here, coming to the attack. b4, my opponent's trying to counterattack. Rook f1. Now my intent is pretty obvious. Look at these pieces. They are all targeting the king. So we have maybe one defender. The queen cannot defend, but I can tell you that the 3 pieces are not attacking me, and they're not helping in the defense. So I have 5 pieces ready to attack, and only 2 heavy pieces for black to defend the king. So we know how the story goes from there. Rook b2, so I'll give credit to my opponent. He's trying to create some counterplay. Knight h4, knight b6. So finally, my opponent, I can see he's trying to come here. Maybe we'll develop bishop b7, but I'm ready to strike. So feel free to pause the video. We're on move 22. What would you play with white here? At any rate, I chose the move rook f6. And I'm pretty happy with that move. And after black took knight f5 and black resigned, because how can you really prevent queen h6 checkmate? You're attacking the queen, you have the bishop here, knight f5, it's GG, good game. Now you may wonder, what if instead of taking the rook, black had given a check here? I don't even have to take, which would be winning, but even if I were to move the king, I wouldn't win like that. Knight f5, and here I can simply move the king and I'm gonna be winning with the same idea, queen h6. So anyway, rook f6 win the game. So going back to the key position here, what did I have in mind? Knight e5, bishop g3, and f2, f4. That's all I knew when I went with this line, bishop g5. So once again, this is a setup for white, easy to play, logical, and I was able to grind some points and move up my rating. So I hope you enjoyed this long video. There was a lot of different ideas. I tried to share some tips explaining, why it works, and proven recipes, again, rated players and in rated game. So real official game played online. So feel free to drop some comments, some like if you enjoy the content, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.